Welcome to Street Knowledge with Chris Graham.
Busy couple of days for UVA basketball after the loss to Virginia Tech on Saturday at JPJ. That 1 point loss, ball on the rim at the buzzer. UVA had a chance to win that one after being down 13 with 6 minutes to go. Surprise, surprise. Virginia goes on the road and dominates Pitt 73-57 win. Chris Graham here, Augusta Free Press. So, yeah, that UVA basketball team that we saw last night, victorious 73-57, a game that Virginia led by double digits for the last 30 minutes. Pitt, a team that was a couple weeks ago borderline a lock for the NCAA tournament. Now very much on the outside looking in with this loss. That UVA basketball team we saw, I want to tell this story. It reminds me of a story I've been telling forever about Anthony Gill and his experience learning how to play Virginia basketball under Tony Bennett. Even though Tony Bennett's not the coach, it's still Tony Bennett basketball. So I've said this story, I've told this story a million times. If you heard it, listen to it again. It's still a good one. Gill told me back during his redshirt sophomore season in college, which for him was his first year playing on the floor for UVA. He had transferred from South Carolina after a year, back when you still had to sit out a transfer a year as a redshirt. So he'd been on the green team for a year, and then now he's finally, in game action for UVA. And he struggled there for a while. And then a green light went off, and after it was a few weeks after that green light went off that I asked him, what it was that led to him, going from being a guy scoring in the single digits and struggling to get minutes on the floor to being that year he was a dominant force down the stretch for that UVA team that won the ACC tournament, got a number one seed in the NCAA tournament, got to the Sweet 16. So, the question was, how hard is it to play this system? And he talked about how Tony Bennett had told him to focus on what he needed to do on defense, until it became second nature. And then once that happened, everything would open up. Not only you would play defense instinctually, but also, you'd start the offense would come naturally to you as well. But it took a while. And for him, I traced it to around February, but it was between the week. It was the week of like February 5th to 10th, somewhere around there for that particular season. Hey, last night, I'm looking at my calendar here. Last night was February 3rd. Now, it was just one game, but man, that looked like a team that's finally figured out how to play Tony Bennett basketball. Unfortunately, now they're 11 and 12. I mean, the issues are what they are. That 2013, 2014 Virginia team was a team that had veteran guys. They had some young guys. They had, Joe Harris I think he was a senior that year. You had, Darion Atkins was a senior that year, but then you had Malcolm Brogdon, who, like Anthony Gill, was a redshirt sophomore. Brogdon also had to sit out the 2012-2013 season because of a foot injury, and he ended up, getting healthy later in that year. Decided not to waste the year. Luckily for us, we got the Elite Eight run out of that. But his fifth year, senior year, but so you had some mix of young guys and old guys, but they really hit their stride. I mean, they were 9-4 at one point in that season, 9-4 with that ugly loss at Tennessee on December 31st, 2013. And then for the rest of the way, we're 21-3 because things clicked for them at different times. But they got better as that season went on, clearly. Um, I say that to say that okay, it's one game again, but maybe it's finally coming together. I don't know. I'm forever an optimist, so I will caution there. I mentioned Pitt came in as an NCAA tournament bubble team. So a couple weeks ago they were borderline lock. 4 weeks ago they were lock, and but they've now lost six of their last eight. They just have the one quad one win now, a quad three home loss to an under 500 Virginia team. That is not what they needed. That's not what the AZZ needed either. Um, you had to figure going into last night's game that Virginia coming off that 1 point loss to Virginia Tech, a not very good team, had gotten blown out at home the week before by a not good Notre Dame team, a win in between against a historically awful Miami team that's going through its own issues with a coaching change midseason. Yeah, that Virginia was supposed to go there and lay down, go to Pitt and lay down. As it turns out, it was Pitt that laid down. Virginia had a 17-0 run early in that first half, got the lead up to 14, and it never got closer than 11 the rest of the way. Virginia started the second half with a 15-point lead. It got to 14, as close as it got in the second half in the last 20 minutes. It briefly got to 20 a couple times. Okay, so for game notes. Day Ames had 27 points, clearly a career high for him and a season high. He's the transfer from Kansas State. 11 of 16 shooting from the field, 3 of 16 from 3 of 6 from 3, excuse me. For context, he had scored 55 points total over a 13 game stretch from December 4th to January 29th. The loss to Florida, the win at Miami. So 55 points over 13 games, 27 points last night. That 55 points over 13 games was 4.2 a game, 34.1% shooting, 4 of 20 from 3. And despite that 4 of 20 from 3, he was still shooting in the high 30s for the season from 3, which tells you, just how good of a shooter he had been before that stretch. Um, in February now, so I mentioned that long stretch ended January 29th. He had 11 points in the loss to Virginia Tech over the weekend, 5 of 8 shooting. So February, maybe things are clicking for him. I had noted in my post Virginia Tech game column that I'd noticed weeks before that Day was still struggling with the defense. Probably a factor into why he had been getting reduced minutes there for a while. The basics of how you funnel guys when you're on ball defending. It seemed like last night, maybe the things clicked and he was playing that defense the way you would expect a Virginia guy to play defense. So um, all of a sudden his offense opens up. I mean, that's an Anthony Gill-like story there. So again, that's extreme to go from, oh, yeah, don't know what I'm doing out here defensively to 27 points in the game because I figured it out. But so one game, but let's just see. Also notable, Blake Buchanan had a double-double, 10 points, 11 rebounds. Last week, he had the 16.9 rebound game at Miami. Had foul trouble in the Tech game, exacerbated by a bad coaching strategy to get him back in the game in the first half to pick up a third foul. So he only got 15 minutes in that one, 4 points, 4 boards. When Blake Buchanan plays well, Virginia plays well. Solid game for Andrew Rohde. He had 9 points, 9 assists, no turnovers. Can we stop it now with this nonsense about how he can't play point guard? Okay. And solid effort also from the redshirt freshman center, Anthony Robinson. Big guy, had 9 points and 6 boards in 17 minutes. He's been pressed into action because of the injury to Elijah Saunders, and he's played pretty well of late. So I like what I'm seeing there. A couple of inside the numbers notes just for Virginia basketball geeks like me. The game was played at Virginia's pace. So the score was 73-57. It was not played at a faster pace. 56 possessions for Virginia, 58 for Pitt. Virginia averages 60 per game, so it was even slower than the slowest team in the country, and it's still a final score of 73-57. Virginia owned the boards. There had been a good stretch of the season where particularly defensive rebounding, keeping the other team off the offensive boards was a big issue. Last night, Pitt only had 4 offensive rebounds. Virginia had an 86.2% defensive rebound rate. I haven't gone back to verify this, but it feels like to me a season high because 25 defensive rebounds, just 4 offensive rebounds, and certainly if you adjust for opponent opponent power rankings, this would be the season high. And a 32% offensive rebound rate. Virginia had 8 offensive rebounds, and Pitt had 17 defensive rebounds, and there were some offensive rebound scores out of that. Pitt only had 5 assists on its 18 made baskets. Virginia had 20 on its 28. That says a lot. And I like to look at the numbers. There's 3 levels of scoring at the rim, mid range, and three, and the two best ones are probably in this order: three, and then at the rim. At From three, Virginia had 10 makes, 10 of 22, 45.5% true shooting. Oh, no, county number shooting percentage. The true shooting percentage there would be 15 of 22, and that'd be in the 65 plus percent range, scoring 30 points on 22 shots. And then 10 makes at the rim, 10 of 15 at the rim, 66.7%. So they made the 2 or 3 levels you're supposed to make shots at. They made good. They had good numbers at, which is good to see. So Virginia now off until the weekend. And so we'll get a little bit of a breather to get some things written. Maybe we'll do some. In fact, I need to do some writing about the coaching search and the update there. Also, an update on. It feels like the transfer portal is probably closed now. When we were into February, so getting anybody into school, even the grad transfers, might be a little tough at this stage. But in any case, we'll wrap up the early part of the 2025 transfer portal, there's another, I mean, it's open, but there's another window after spring practice where guys can re-enter. So the guys who are already in the transfer portal can do what they need to do. Um, again, with the limitation of they've got to be able to get into school, I guess, so they can so they can be a part of spring practice, which is why you would transfer now. But yeah, after spring practices are over, there's a period of time in April where guys can enter for the first time um, after spring practice, and that'll be the other, where you can address needs that you've identified after spring practice. So yeah, and in fact, as I'm thinking here, Tony Elliott does have a presser this week. I think it's tomorrow as I'm recording on Tuesday. It's Wednesday, where he's going to talk because it's the second signing day for the class of 2025 prep recruits. I'm not sure I've seen anything of note that Virginia is going to be adding from the prep class to the prep class. But in any case, Tony Elliott will be available to the media tomorrow to address, the prep class, but also I'm sure there'll be lots of questions there, and almost certainly will be about the transfer portal class. And so that'll be a great opportunity to kind of wrap things up for what has been a really good UVA football recruiting class in the transfer portal this year. Very good, top 20 according to one of the services, and whatever the services do in terms of rankings, there's a good feeling around the UVA football program about what they've picked up on the portal. As many as 15, maybe 16 starters have been picked up from the portal. This team is going to really have an influx of talent going into spring and then next summer and fall. So, in any case, that's what we have coming up for you here on AFP as far as UVA athletics is concerned. If you have any questions for me, anything you want me to look into, please feel free to drop me a line at chris@augustafreepress.com.